Hello, my name is Damian Lichon, and I'll be presenting you the Judas Priest case. In case you didn't know who Judas Priest was, they were a heavy metal band in England, especially popular during the 70s and 80s. And the two people that were involved in this case were Raymond Belknap and James Vance. Vance is 20, Belknap was 18 at the time it happened. So on night on December 23rd, 1985, they were both in Belknap's house, drinking, smoking weed, and listening to Judas Priest music. And after a while, they both agreed to a suicide pact. So they both went in the playground with a shotgun. So what happened was that Belknap was the first one to execute himself. So he put the gun to his throat, pulled the trigger, and pretty much died instantly. With James Vance, it was a little bit more complicated. So Vance put the gun to his throat, and at the last moment, the gun moved, and he ended up blowing the lower portion of his face, so he didn't die. But what happened was that he needed 13 surgeries, 13, to attempt to reconstruct his face, and the cost of the surgeries was about $400,000, and he still wasn't right after that. So until he died in 1988 of a methadone overdose, he had to continue to wear a bib because he would drool all the time, and he had to sleep with a towel under his chin. And then a few hours after the incident, Belknap's mother, Annetta Robinson, went into her son's room to find actually leftovers of alcohol and marijuana in the house. And what she found on the album on her son's record player was Stained Class by Judas Priest. So that was the album that they were listening to, Stained Class. However, the thing is, when Vance was actually interviewed by the police, he said that the attempted suicide was because life sucks. And I mean, it's even a common issue today. A lot of people, they have suicidal thoughts because they think their life is not going the way they should. They think it's awful. So definitely a lot of people connect him in that statement. However, he didn't mention anything about the music at that time. Not until March did Vance admit that they were listening to Judas Priest before the incident. So this is where it gets interesting, and where both families ended up filing suits. First, Belknap's mother, Robertson, filed a suit, and then a couple months later, Vance's family ended up filing a suit. So of course the band members of Judas Priest denied that they put in a subliminal message. And even the band leader said even if they did, it was protected under free speech. But so the issue here was not whether the lyrics of the song was defended by free speech, the First Amendment, because it was. But the key issue here was that whether subliminal messages were the cause of the suicidal thoughts of both Vance and Belknap. And even the leader, Rob Halford, believed that the main issues here and why the suicide happened was due to their emotional issues and substance abuse. And we're going to see this towards the end of the case. So basically the main judge, his name is Judge Whitehead, even listened to a song from the album called Better You, Better Me. And the message he heard in it, and what he heard was do it. So that was the subliminal message at hand. However, the judge ended up concluding that even though he heard the phrase, it was led to a combination of sounds on the recording rather than being intentional. So the band members did not intend for that to be the message. It just happened because of the combination of sounds on the recordings that he heard. So the lawyers defending the families, they had their psychologist Howard Shervin defending them. He said that even though the subliminal command "do it" created a compulsion and a desire for Vance and Belknap, it created a compulsion and a desire where Vance and Belknap were inclined to commit suicide. Okay, so basically the message did give him a spark to incline them to commit suicide. Excuse me. However, this testimony was obviously objected by the lawyers that were defending Judas Priest, and they used a few psychologists. The most notable one was Dr. Anthony Pratkins, who was a social psychologist and professor at the University of California of Santa Cruz. So he even used his own research here, which is something that Shervin did not do. So what Pratkins said that his research demonstrated that subliminal self-help tapes were not effective in influencing human behavior. So subliminal messages were not effective in affecting the behaviors of both Vance and Belknap. So basically what all the witnesses and the psychologists defending Judas Priest had to say was that their suicide attempt and Belknap's suicide was due to a depression through a combination of alcohol, drug use, family problems, and even emotional problems. So basically it was a combination of factors that led them to the suicidal thoughts. Because the main question at hand was whether the subliminal messages were the cause of her suicidal thoughts. That was what the case tried to get to. So Judge White had concluded that there was no scientific research to back up that the subliminal message did lead to the suicidal thoughts in both Belknap and Vance. The factors that contributed to it, which is basically what the band members would say, was psychologists that say that it was a combination of alcohol, drug use, violent histories, and poor attachment to school and family. Especially both of them dropped out of school. And actually, what happened was that Belknap was actually expelled in junior high for sexual assault, and Vance actually ended up assaulting his mother at one time. So both of them had bad histories with assault. Oh, and it was proved that both of them used cocaine as well as drinking and using marijuana heavily. And this really ended up being a defining case because it resulted in a claim that has not been solved in psychology, and it was whether or not subliminal messages actually can induce someone in a certain way. And it showed that it can't. Subliminal messages alone cannot induce someone to act in a certain way. The other one was that there were no cases after that regarding music groups being held liable for violent behavior. So after this case, there were no more cases regarding music groups being held liable for what happened. And even Judas Priest themselves, and this is common sense, said, look, 500,000 people are listening to our music, even more, and none of them are committing suicides. So it's obviously it cannot just be that one thing that's causing the suicidal thoughts in people, like it was with these kids. So it was a whole combination of factors that led to their suicidal thoughts. Which, I mean, it's pretty sad, but it's reality. All right, so that's pretty much it. And these are my sources. All right, thank you for watching.